now?
Yes, because it says stop streaming.
Okay, so we're actually on. This isn't at all obnoxious and complicated. Okay. And it says our signal is excellent. All right. We are on.
It's YouTube.
Yes. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you online. Thank you for joining us. A blessing as always. Let's open with prayer, and then we will dive in today. All right. And Mom, would you pray for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Lord Jesus, thank you for today, and thank you for loving us. Thank you for being so faithful. I pray that you would give us wisdom, help us to rightly divide your word. Let us learn what we need to learn today, and help us to understand you better. I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. So today is the 20th of July, 2024, or the 14th day of the Jewish month of Tamuz. Good. The year is 5784. Yes. And it is Shabbat, so Shabbat Shalom. Yay. And there's Max the dog.
There's Magsy making his debut.
Again. All right.
I guess it's not a debut if he's already been on.
A million times every single week. Yes. Hello, Max. If you're following the weekly parashiot, the weekly Torah readings, this week's reading is Balak. Balak, which is the book of Numbers, chapter 22, verse 2, through chapter 25, I can't type, 25, verse 9. Yes, Anna?
But isn't Numbers Bamidbar?
Correct, but the section in Bamidbar is called Balak.
Balak.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yes. So again, chapter 22, verse 2 to chapter 25, verse 9. So, there it is.
Well, she used to have one with the New Testament readings.
I know we used to years ago. I can't find it anymore.
Oh,
First Fruits of
Hebrews for
Zion?
Christian doesn't have it?
I don't know. They don't.
Oh,
Yeah. So that is this week's Torah portion. Read it. Good stuff in there as always. All right. So we continue, of course, first to discuss the war in Israel, right? Does anybody have any updates from the war in Israel? It's been a very exciting 24 hours.
Yemen. Let's do it.
Yemen attacked Israel's embassy or Jerusalem or something like that.
Yeah, so what happened last night?
I don't know.
Yemen, I guess, decided to jump in and
Oh, they've been in it.
they've been in it, okay,
Yeah.
and attacked Israel last night. So now Israel is fighting back.
Okay, so last night, the Tel Aviv, which is sort of the New York of Israel, was attacked by Yemen Houthis, Houthis, Houthis. This is another Muslim terrorist organization that is funded by and backed by Iran, right? And they actually sent a drone to downtown Tel Aviv, where they attacked or tried to attack the U.S. consulate there. So it was attacked not only against Israel, but also
But the
against
US.
the United States. Now, of course, the United States hasn't done much in way of response. We tend not to do that these days, which is unfortunate. But Israel, fortunately, has responded. And what did they do today, Joshua?
We just oppositely gave him heck.
Yeah, what? So gave him heck how?
Like plane
Set 'em
bombings
on
and
fire.
Yeah, so Israel, thank God, we sent fighters down to Yemen. And again, here's Israel, if you need a little geography review. And Yemen is way down here at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula.
It's like, mind your business.
There's Yemen, right there.
Mind your business. You're nowhere near Israel. I don't need to be part of this.
Well, Yemen has been embroiled in a war, again funded by Iran on one side and interestingly Saudi Arabia on the other.
Oh, geez.
For a few years now. It's been terrible and devastating, and the people of Yemen, as with every war, are caught in the middle. But their Iranian-backed Houthi organization attacked Israel by sending that drone to Tel Aviv. So, thank God no one was hurt in Tel Aviv, right? Israel retaliated, of course, so essentially slapping Yemen back, saying, stop it, don't do this, and we'll see what happens.
See, that's the good thing about Israel is their strategy is usually to try to just, what's the word, impact them without damage.
Oh,
mean,
they damaged them.
No, I mean like people damage. They tried it. They
try
do
to
everything
minimize,
they can to
yeah,
minimize
civilian deaths.
casualties. So,
Yeah.
but not Yemen. Yemen didn't care if
Oh,
there
Yemen
was
doesn't
somebody
care.
in the middle of the.
Yeah. Well, we know that Yemen is motivated by the general tenets of Islam, right? And if you remember our Bible studies from several weeks ago, are we okay over here?
Oh no! Put her in the bathroom. She obviously wants
All
to
right,
play.
Benjamin, first give it here. Wait a second.
falling
So
outside.
what is going on, right? So we have a mouse problem around our house. So yesterday we got a cat. And here's the little cat. She's 3 months old, brand new, adorable,
She found something like she
It's okay, man.
but she is very gaseous.
She probably has to poo-poo. She probably
And
has to poo-poo.
there's a lot of, that's what they're fussing about in the background. So.
She's very anxious, but we have to. She just got spayed, so she can't be all.
Right.
Crazy
So
today.
we're hoping she turns into a good mouser. I think she will. But if you hear in the background, that's what's going on. Okay, so Yemen, I'll back up. Several weeks ago, we did a multi-week series on Islam. Do you guys remember that? And we actually looked
Yeah.
at the Quran and the Hadiths and other things of that nature to see what the motivation is behind Islam and why they hate us so much, really.
Right.
And it was quite informative, and unfortunately, those studies have been lost. Facebook took them down, and they weren't transferred to YouTube.
Oh
so,
no.
yeah.
Well, you can look that up. You can look up everything.
Oh,
we
yeah,
did
there's some
and-
great resources.
But I find it interesting now
Have my coffee,
because,
please.
remember a few weeks ago we were like, well, I know I said it and I know you said it before. If we think this war is just against Israel, then we're mistaken. And so I find it interesting that today they attacked an American embassy.
Right.
And it proves, they're not just out to eliminate Jews in Israel, they're out to eliminate the Western world.
They are.
Because they don't like us.
Why
And
don't they like us?
Well, they think we're infidels.
Well,
at first,
our societies are based on Judeo-Christian values.
Right, yeah.
And that's something that Muslim-centric teachings cannot tolerate, right? In fact, it says in the Quran that you will take a knife to the neck of your enemies, the infidels.
Right.
So,
And also, too, that we support Israel. I mean, we've been
we
allies
being
with
the United
Israel,
States?
the United States. Yeah.
Oh, we used to. I
So,
don't know if
well,
we're doing
I mean, they're still attacking us. Well, they're attacking us for other reasons now because of our leadership's weakness. But, so if we think, you're sitting there supporting Palestine, if you're supporting, Hamas or whatever, they don't care
Yeah.
that you're supporting them. If you're an American and you call yourself an American, they don't
They hate
like
you.
you.
Yeah.
They're not your friends.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm not Arabs, Muslims. I'm talking about Muslims
Correct.
because there are probably some very friendly Arabs. out
Well, we
there.
have many friends who are Arab.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's one of the big things that's gone on. Now, of course, there are still approximately 120 hostages, both Jews and Gentiles, that are being held by Hamas in, we believe, Rafah. We don't know if they've escaped across the Egyptian border or being held somewhere else.
We haven't gotten our
So-
Americans back yet.
No, the United States has done nothing to get the American hostages that are being held by Hamas back as well.
So don't go overseas if you expect our country to do anything
Well,
with you.
Yeah. So we continue to ask for prayer for the hostages, for their families, for Israel, for Jews around the world. Riots against Jews continue to saturate major cities around the globe, right? There was a big riot in Leeds, United Kingdom, just a day ago.
Yeah, did they ever find out what that was for?
They did over $1 million damage, they being the Muslim majority in that area.
Jeez.
And I don't know why.
Shut your borders, people. Don't let people in, Muslims in anyway. They're not coming in because they need help. They're coming in to destroy societies.
Now remember, if you saw the Bible studies concerning Islam a few weeks ago, we're not anti-Muslim.
Right.
People have the right to
exactly,
choose whatever religion they wish. We are against people who set out to murder and wreak violence and intimidate other people. And unfortunately, that tends to be a great deal of people in Islam. Now, approximately 80% of Muslims just want to live in peace and raise their families and have a good life. But it's that 20%, which is the squeaky
The
wheel,
squeaky wheel,
if you
yeah.
will, that gets all the attention. And since there are about 1.5 billion Muslims on Earth, 20% leaves 300 million Muslims who want to kill us.
It must be very
So-
frustrating. It's very similar to people who call themselves Christian and then do like
Horrible things.
horrible things, which has been done in the name of Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because you can't separate yourself no matter how you try. It's like you could tell them, till you're blue in the face. Those aren't Christians. Those are just using the name Christianity.
Right.
So those aren't a normal Muslim. They're the extremist. And every
Well,
group
that's what they
has
say.
Christian.
But if you look at the general writings of Islam, like in the Quran, in the Hadiths, they promote all the violence that's currently being done in the name of Islam.
Well, that's a whole subject that we could talk about.
We don't have time for
that
it
was
today.
one of the points we brought up when we talked about
Yeah.
it. Was if you espouse to the Quran, aren't you supporting them in some way?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there. But
So we don't really have time to go into that.
but there are a
today.
lot of non-religious Arabs. There are
Well, there are Arabs who
or
are Christian.
Christian
there are
or,
Arabs who have converted to Judaism. There are Arabs who are Buddhist. So Arabs in ethnicity, Islam is a religion.
right. Yeah,
Right.
that's true. Yeah.
Sir.
I just wanted to ask Mom to clarify. You said don't let Muslims into your country.
Well, they're coming over. The reason why England and France and all of them, there was this big push back a few years ago where they were trying to bring people in as asylum seekers. And all the people they were saying women and children, but everyone that was coming over were just young men.
Yeah.
And they weren't asylum seekers.
Like-
Because if they were asylum seekers, why wouldn't they bring their families with them? Why wouldn't they bring their wives and children? But if you look, I'm not saying there weren't any women and children that came, but most of them, if you looked at the pictures and the lines that they would show constantly, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men, young men, coming in, not, like 5, but like, military age and,
Like 20, 21, 22.
What you're seeing right now are some of the pictures of the riots in Leeds, United Kingdom, yesterday, done by these Islamic folks who believe that they should live out what the Quran and Hadiths teach concerning violence.
And they're not even Americans. They're just.
This is United Kingdom.
I know. They're out to.
Mom, it's just
The Quran wants them to conquer the whole known world,
What about
basically.
That's actually true.
what about legally coming in to
No, legally is fine, but
That's why each person needs to be vetted
yeah,
and see, are you a legitimate refugee? Do you really need help? Is there something we can do to better your life? And what about your family? Are they coming with you? Make sure it's actual family and then help them. But if it's just floods and floods and floods of military-age men who, for whatever reason, are being used right now as political weapons, the USSR, sorry, Russia, the USSR is actually using them as political cultural weapons against Finland and Eastern Europe to destabilize. They're paying millions and millions and millions rubles to fund these guys into parts of Eastern Europe and destabilize that area. So they're using these men as weapons.
right. And at the time, it was. At the time, the governments were like, "We'll take in asylum seekers." It wasn't like they were saying, "Oh, we're going to open our borders to anybody."
Right.
They were actually legitimately trying to help people that were in countries that were being, like Venezuela, people that needed to get out of a regime that was bad. So it wasn't like today when we have open borders and anyone can come. It was legitimately focused on helping people get out of.
Now, good news about the riots in the United Kingdom yesterday. There was an arrest made.
Oh,
Yeah, and the
What was
person
it?
arrested was a British woman who spoke against the rioters. True story.
what
And
is
she was
up with
arrested
that?
for being Islamophobic. So,
Wow, England needs to get their act together.
well,
Jeez.
They're together.
all right. So, pray for Israel. Pray for the Jewish people all over the world. We're experiencing quite a difficult time right now. Pray for the hostages and their families. Pray for Hamas. And pray for those who identify as Palestinian. Because the only thing that's going to answer this crisis is Yeshua, is Jesus, period. Nothing else is going to bring peace to the Middle East. So everyone needs to get saved.
Everyone screams hate, 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 but then when people that come and actually, like this riot yesterday, that's not an act of love.
What?
But yet nobody says anything about it. Why are we so afraid of Muslims?
And there was I'm sorry to interrupt, just reminded me of England again. We were looking very closely at moving to England within the next year.
Yeah.
But after their new Labour government was elected, that was very pro-immigration and very pro, and I'm for immigrants if it's legitimate,
Yeah.
very pro-Islamic, and very anti-traditional British values, we decided it's probably not the best idea for a bunch of Jews to move to England right now. But there was a picture posted at a bus stop in England. It was just a piece of paper that was taped to the stop, and it said, "Do not walk your dogs here. This is Muslim area."
What?
Yeah. Because Muslims, the Quran teaches against dogs, so pray for England as well.
We
All
need
right.
to get, jeez.
Oh, come on.
She just rose her face. She's like, yeah. All right, so moving on, we do have a Bible study to look at. So, been very interesting the past few weeks. We've been looking at where is God, right? Where is God when I'm scared?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
VeggieTales reference. Where is God when I'm hurting? Where is God when I am struggling, right? Even with mental illness or physical illness. And I think we came to some pretty good answers about that concerning Romans chapter 5, and we looked at several scriptures last week. Jeremiah 17, Romans 12, Galatians 2, etc., etc.
And we also talked about faith healing.
Oh, yeah,
Healing.
that was
a good
interesting.
A good topic.
Yeah.
A lot of these things you really can dive really deep into.
Oh, I mean, we just could go
Yeah.
forever, right, to look at this. But there's a subject now that I wanted to sort of broach, and it rather ties in obliquely to all of this. And this is about affections. What do I mean by affections?
Things you
Hobbies.
like.
Not hobbies.
I've heard people use it like, well, my afternoon affections are boat build. Like, I've
Yeah,
heard that.
quite anyway.
I think
I've
it's
heard that.
Quite, really?
Yeah.
I've never used it.
I think it's in between love and like. Like it's something that
Like.
it's like I have an affection for chocolate. I really like chocolate.
Right.
I don't have an affection for liver. So it's something that you find it is you can relate to and
Okay.
have a like more than a like, but less than like I'm madly in love with
So
chocolate
it's not
or
like,
whatever. You know?
it's like, but not like.
It's like.
Not
I like you.
But it's not like.
Right.
It's just like.
Right. Exactly. Like.
So it's just like.
Uh-huh.
But like.
Is it?
Like.
Totally.
I would say that. It's like 90.
Okay.
I would say affection is just any positive emotional feeling towards things or people.
Okay. So can we define it then as an emotional or feelings-based response to someone or something that dictates one's behavior?
Of
Is that a
course.
fair
Dictates one behavior.
definition?
Look at
Because
coffee.
if you have an affection for delicious coffee, then you drink coffee. If you have an affection for, as you said, something, a hobby, then you go and do that hobby. You participate in it. It's not just, hey, I like this, I'm not going to do anything about the like, but it's going to change or dictate how I behave toward that person or thing.
You want it part of your life. Like, I really like dogs. So you're not going to sit there and not buy a dog. You're
Or
gonna-
baby kittens.
Or a baby
I guess-
kitten.
Yes, kittens are babies, but
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We are witnessing. I don't know what they're whispering about.
She's purring.
Oh, she's purring.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had the cat less than one day, so it's like
It hasn't
brand
touched
new
the ground
yet.
yet. Everybody's holding her.
So we are witnessing in our culture a perversion and hyper focus on affections. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I would definitely agree.
So true or false? We are witnessing in our culture a perversion. I can't spell. Perversion and hyper focus on affections. Joshua, you had something.
No?
Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Okay.
I think the main, the key word for affections is feelings. And we have become, for some reason, we've taken truth and logic and thrown them to the side, and everything's about feelings. You hurt my feelings. You made me feel offended. It's a feeling. It's not a fact. If I say, I hate your shirt, I'm not, and then you're like, oh, I'm offended. Now
What's
you
wrong with
hate
my
me
shirt?
because I
You
picked this
offended
shirt
me.
and
Oh,
I
my.
bought it, and
Not
it's
enough
like, no,
buttons.
your shirt's ugly. So instead of
My shirt's ugly?
no, I'm using it as an example.
I know.
We tend to personify our
like-
feelings. They seem to be more. We make them solid, and they're not solid. They're very fluid. Feelings are fluid because they're environmentally influenced.
Okay.
So you can't have something
So-
stable if it's influenced by other things.
So here's the question then. Where did this start? where did this hyper focus on feelings and emotionalism and this perversion of natural affection begin? Now, it may be different for each country, wherever you're watching. But in the United States, at least, where we live, and that's so we can speak about that a little bit because we know it better. And I'm losing you right off the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, welcome back. In the United States, where did this begin? This hyper focus on affections or feelings is sort of emphasizing those more than other things, like maybe facts.
Personally, I think it started when those gosh darn liberals started taking. I'm kidding.
I think it probably in the 60s, where they had the Make Love Not War,
In the USA,
or
1960s.
Be Happy, the I think that's probably when the New Age movement came in and people were enlightened and made to feel peaceful and
Okay, so
things like
tell
that.
me what happened in the 60s. What revolution occurred that ushered this into our culture? And this is actually a Bible study. We're all going to look at this through the lens of Scripture. So,
If I remember, it was the love, or it was the free. It was there was a big thing.
Woodstock.
Woodstock.
No, Woodstock
I think
was
that
at the
started
end
the
of that.
hippie movement, and that started the
That was
the
actually
hippie
at the
movement.
end. Woodstock was 69, right?
something like that.
And
Yeah,
it
that
was
was the exact
free
end.
love, kind of, the
Make love, not war.
Make love,
was
not
definitely
war.
that.
It was.
If
It
it
was.
feels good, do it.
It was really a rebellion against Vietnam, and
Was it against Vietnam?
it's
Vietnam was a catalyst, I think, part of this.
It was baby boomers getting mad at their World War II parents.
Oh, all right. Okay. So yes. So
Let's just be honest.
so there was. It's called the countercultural revolution, right?
Yeah, man.
It's like the
Revolution.
age of
Yesterday's hippies or today's
I
hipsters?
can't spell.
What is that song that
Revolution.
Steve Martin sings?
Oh.
That's what I personify
Rebellion
in
Of young
Out of
people.
Towners.
I never saw either song.
Remember when he
against.
takes that aspirin in jail and it's not really aspirin? And he starts singing that.
World War II
It's funny.
and sort of war in general, right? And the authority.
I think
that
it's
won
more authority figures than
Yeah,
it
They
is
got wow wow. They were afraid of
war.
nuclear weapons. Wow wow.
it. Okay, so
That's them.
real fast, somebody tell us in 30 seconds, because we have a lot to cover. Talk me from what happened from 1945 to 1960, about 2 or 3 or 4, when this countercultural revolution really started to pick up in San Francisco and just sort of exploded across the world. It even spread to Europe and parts of Asia and Africa.
There was a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Korea and
Well,
Vietnam.
start us at World War II first. What happened?
Oh, the Nazis were defeated by the Russians in the United States, and the Japanese surrendered. Everyone was like, "Yay!" And then
How did we beat the Japanese?
by nuclear weapons.
We nuked them. So up to this time, never in human history that we know, it's been recorded, has there been a weapon so devastating, right? So devastating that could wipe out just thousands and thousands and thousands at a time. And then Russia got it, thanks to some people in the United States, right? And then there started an arms race in the early 50s where we could do MAD, which is what?
Mass destructive.
Mutually
Weapons.
Mutually assured
Oh, yeah,
destruction,
yeah.
right? Where we had the promise of destroying not only each other, looking at the United States and the Soviet Union, but the entire planet. So somebody living in, northern Madagascar, who is just enjoying his life and his family, could die because these two distant countries wanted to kill each other. First time in human history, at least since the flood, that there's been something like this. What did that do to the collective psyche of the young people of the United States who were born in 45, 46, 47, and came of age in the early 60s?
Scared them.
It made them afraid. It made them afraid.
So they grew up with this tension, right, of imminent death. Do you remember in school practicing for nuclear weapons? We did, in Colorado.
You lived near Washington, D.C. You of all people should have been.
Joe White teaches
There's
them
no-
at that point. It's like, it's Washington, D.C. Whatever happens, happens.
First of all, a desk isn't going to save you.
Uh-huh.
Third of all, we're a first strike zone. So, there's no sense in hiding. You might as well just raise your hands and wait for the Lord to come get you. Because
Well, I remember one of our teachers in school saying that the entire Front Range of Colorado, from Cheyenne, Wyoming, all the way down to Colorado Springs, would just be fire.
The teacher was a cruel.
And he was very honest, though, because
hey,
there's a lot
kids.
of military.
Fire.
And he told us that if we ever had a nuclear war, there was no possible way we'd ever survive. We were
Right.
all going to die.
So why they
Either
had
way.
drills,
How
it
old
doesn't
were
make
you?
sense.
I
Because the
don't know.
desk isn't going to save you.
Yeah, how old are you?
15,
Oh, okay.
maybe.
Oh, I was
16?
about to say, tell it like imagine.
If you were like 7 or 8, I
I
wouldn't
pictured a
remember.
6th grader
But
being
when I
told.
was in 7 or 8, they were teaching us to get under our desks to
Yeah.
protect ourselves from nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that very clearly. Get under your desk, you crouch down, you wait for the big flash, the whole thing. So for the first time in human history, that early generation, born again in 45, 46, 47, those baby boomers are called now, grew up with this imminent fear of these fierce nations destroying each other completely, right? No future. Everyone dies. No one wins. How did that feed into the countercultural revolution?
I think it actually was the starter. It was the seed of it.
Okay.
I don't think that anything else. I think other things added to it. Like rebellion and teenage angst. Just rebelling against the adults ahead of us or before us. But I think fear really was the stem of that rebellion, because they obviously. And I think also, too, that they think they could change things. Teenagers and young adults think they can change things. But when you're talking global war, it's a whole different ball game. You can't just protest and then somebody's going to get rid of the bomb. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Okay,
But fear,
so
I think, is the foundation on that.
The society that led to the Cold War and imminent threat.
so this was all fomented by people who were smart, right? I think Einstein, who helped create the first atom bomb, and all the intelligence and science that fed into that, and they were in positions of authority. So these young people who grew up after the worst war in recorded human history was waged, World War II, and now we're growing up in this threat of imminent death at any moment from anywhere, saw that the smart people in charge were the ones who created this culture of death. So we have to fight against it, right? So instead of listening to them, we're going to listen to ourselves. Instead of encouraging death, we're going to encourage love and peace and harmony and sex, because sex is an expression of life, right? Being alive and creating new life. And man, you want to do it, and you can trip on drugs and things, because these were all experiments, what they did.
No, I know. I was thinking, that's gonna stop war.
Yeah. Well, they hoped to have this massive movement where nuclear weapons would be banned, and they would become people in positions of authority themselves, and they would change the world. Well, of course, it didn't happen, but that was the goal of the countercultural revolution. So some of their intentions may have been pure, but thank you, Benjamin, that was subtle. Some of their intentions may have been pure, but they didn't really get that far because they disabled themselves, right? Through the excess of fomenting is the wrong word, of cultivating hyper-emotionalism and hyper-feeling, right? Their thought was, if it's intelligence and science that brought us this culture of death, then if we just follow our feelings, it'll bring life, man. And I remember my parents, while I was growing up, were into this aggressively. The whole make love, not war, and astrology, and peace, and love, and superstition, and so that's what happens. So they absolutely removed all authority from their society, these countercultural societies, and in so doing, they also removed God. Why?
But they don't need
He
it.
wants
They're
us
just
to.
doing feeling
Because-
themselves. And they think it's necessary, I guess.
God is not a self look into yourself kind of God. He's a surrender yourself and look to me kind of God. So it doesn't fit into the selfishness of that movement.
Okay, so these people that have created this society of winning World War II, and now we have the Cold War, they claim to be Christians. And the United States claimed to be a predominantly Christian country during World War II, right? And they actually had prayers for victory in World War II and all these things. So if the God of the Bible was what led to the arms race, they're thinking, they being these countercultural revolutionaries, then we got to abandon the God of the Bible too. We got to rebel, man. We got to rebel against everything. Start over. A new beginning. Sound familiar? So they did. And there was a book written by a man, a thinker at the time, who was part of the establishment, but not really, which sort of became a, a trampoline, if you will, toward accentuating this countercultural movement. Does anybody know what that book is? Here's a hint. It was dedicated to Lucifer.
Oh, that's right. That's Hillary Clinton's thing. She dedicated it to that guy, right?
What? She dedicated a book to Satan.
No, she.
Genesis?
The Church of Satan book.
No, it's him. She
Alice book. No.
she quoted him or said something about him that she was a fan or liked him and whatever.
That is.
Let's see. I don't think this was it. No. I actually forgot the name of the book. I thought it was by Kaminsky.
I think it was.
Well, Kaminsky, he was just calling him a Satanist. For nothing
Yeah.
else. Kaminsky, very common last name I'm on.
Does anybody remember the name of this book? Because it totally just fell out of my head, even as I'm
On
speaking.
the original
Satanic Bible.
Just look up
No.
dedicated to Lucifer book.
Interestingly, the Satanic Bible was also written in the 60s. And the Church of Satan was founded in the 60s in San Francisco, right?
If you've even looked
As a counter-cultural revolutionary defiance of authority. There it is. Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky.
Oh.
So,
never
yes, he
heard of that
was.
one.
Name of the book is
So,
Rules for Radicals.
Saul Alinsky wrote, and he was, unfortunately, he was
I love that
Jewish
name.
as well. And I say unfortunately because being a Jewish person ourselves, I'm like, I'm sorry, world.
It's
We
like
put this
finding
on
out
you.
Shia LaBeouf is Jewish. It's like, do we have to claim him?
We pray for Shia LaBeouf. Saul Alinsky, who was a thinker and philosopher, wrote this book called Rules for Radicals, published in 1971, which was sort of at the peak of this countercultural thing. Started in the early 60s, built up towards Woodstock in the late 60s, went right into the 70s, sort of died down in the late 70s, early 80s.
That's because they had to get jobs by the 70s.
Yeah, they had to grow
It
up,
looks
right?
like a teenager made that. Because if you look at the font, especially, it's like.
Yeah, well.
But I find it interesting,
It's like
even
cartoons.
out of that counterculture thing came more technology. Because that's where Apple started and Microsoft. And it seemed like it was interesting because the
Bill Gates knew a lot of
counterculture is trying to eliminate mutual destruction, but yet in the underlying thing, all the smart people were in their garages creating stuff, which would in turn create like AI
Another
and
revolution,
internet fraud and stuff like that.
He's trying to tell you something.
Bill Gates and Steve Jobs at that time were grown guys.
But they were
In
in
the
there.
60s?
They were.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was a hippie. Bill Gates
I
was not.
was going to say, I thought they were like young men at that time.
They
You're
were-
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were grown guys.
Okay.
Well, I know, but they were older when they got, because he quit college and then they went into their garage and started doing their
All right,
thing.
so let's look at this. This book, Rules for Radicals, it's really impacted and helped direct this countercultural revolution. Written by Alinsky, this is in the introduction and the dedication. And he says, lest we forget, he being Saul Alinsky in this book, he says, lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement of the very first radical from all our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which, the first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer.
No, please.
Yeah. So this is the satanic fueled to the fire rebellion against authority that happened. Now, sometimes you have to rebel against authority if the authority is bad, right? The American Revolution is a picture of that. We were being oppressed by the United Kingdom at the time, King George, etc., etc. We rebelled as a country. We threw off the shackles of tyranny, and we started our nation. That sound you hear, by the way, is an alert telling us that Israel is getting bombed and attacked right now. So, sorry to hear that. However, sometimes people rebel against good authorities that are positive, helpful, and life-bringing. And that rebellion only brings death. Saul Alinsky in his book is an example of that.
Well, what's the book about?
Interestingly, Saul Alinsky was a mentor, if you will, to a young Hillary Clinton.
She's the devil.
No, she's
She's.
not. She's not.
It becomes too political.
So all of this fed into this hyper-emotionalism, right? Excuse me. And we are where we are today with this focus now today on hyper feelings, right? Everything's about feelings. Feelings about who you feel you are sexually, who you feel you are mentally and emotionally. You can even identify as an animal now if you want to, because that's your truth.
Good luck trying to get hired.
And even, well, I'm just telling the truth. And even...
No, I'm talking about like people who identify
Oh,
as
right,
animals.
yeah. Even saying, or now we're taught that there's something called subjective morality, where you define your own reality by defining your own truth and finding your own truth. Okay.
I think morality is subjective, but not to the individual. Like
I
a
disagree.
civilization makes it like how it was okay
No,
to
I'm
wipe
gonna
out people in the
disagree.
Torah.
It's not. No.
There
Like,
is.
it's not okay to like have multiple wives here, but in ancient Israel it was. Like that's morality that has changed.
I think there's
Is it really
absolute
sense?
truths. There are absolute truths.
No, they're all
Truth is not
This one's impossible.
fluid. It's not,
No, it's not.
you know,
Maybe.
you can't make something untrue just because you don't believe it.
Maybe they're just.
No, that's definitely.
Maybe because some stuff is up to us to decide if it's good
Yeah.
or wrong.
Yeah, but it's a right or wrong thing. It's like, I mean that's a
don't-
whole other
Like
conversation.
model
Like,
is
it
bad
is
everywhere, right? Almost
Model-
everywhere.
almost
Not
everywhere.
everywhere.
Papua New Guinea. There are tribes in Papua New Guinea that there's honor to killing based on revenge.
So
Right.
Yeah,
less
but then,
objective?
but even that
Yeah.
is a little skewed because who determines what should be revenged?
I guess
Because, like, they could use anything as an excuse for revenge.
Well, they're finding their own truth.
But that's the thing is it's take, you know, that would be great if you just left it there. But they're not just leaving it there. They're saying, now you have to fall into what I think,
Correct.
even though you don't think that. And so that's where things get messy, because if you want to believe the earth is flat, that's fine. When you die and go to heaven, then you'll know the truth or whatever.
Actually, it's not fine. You need to seek mental help if you legitimately believe the other stuff.
But what I'm saying is, don't push your belief upon me. Now, of course, they say that about Christianity, but Christianity is the basis for all our laws. The Ten Commandments are, you know, our
But it's still
foundation of our society. Most societies, I would say, because all of us have don't steal, don't murder, don't kill, don't, you know, covet your neighbors, you know, all those things.
So, this has led to what I call hyper-elastic culturalism. Hyper-elastic culturalism, where instead of having basic cultural rules and boundaries which are safe for everyone, like you can't have sex in public, that's just wrong and immoral.
Right.
Ew.
Now we have a society where it's like you can do what you want.
Right.
It's your own truth. We have stretched our reasoning and we've lost our logic to a point where anybody can essentially do almost anything, and it's getting pushed farther and farther to these bizarre extremes, very hurtful extremes. Anybody can do almost anything, and it's okay as long as they're finding and living their own truth. Right? The most extreme example, pedophilia. Right?
That is
Pedophilia
extreme.
has become legal in this country to an extent. It used to be, when I was growing up, that you were 18 as age of consent, and that was it. It's 18 and over. Now it's 17. In some
14,
states,
12.
16, right? California wanted to pass a law a year or two ago to lower it to 14. Thank God that law died. But they're still trying to push it. And now, by the way, there are no more pedophiles. They're called minor attracted people.
They call them
minor
pedophiles.
attracted
You
people.
take you call a
Yeah,
you
they
call a
call
spade a
freaking
spade.
sick.
Yeah.
And
he's a
even
pedophile.
TED Talks, which used to be a bastion of academic integrity, has now allowed speakers in talking about how minor attracted people really shouldn't be in jail because they're just responding to the way they were made or to the truth they have found.
Sounds like a
Well,
pedophile
tell
trying
to the
defend
child
themselves.
that they raped and murdered, probably.
Uh,
The 14 or 12 or 10 or 9. I mean, hello.
Texans when they show them a 16-year-old.
Or Californians.
I don't know how old.
As a
It's
Texan,
18
I
in
just-
California.
I was texting
That's-
last night about
It's 16 in Colorado.
That's the thing with our
Is it? I thought it was
society
16.
is we're no longer siding with the victim.
Yeah.
We're siding with the criminal. And we're making the criminal the victim.
Well, it's
And
actually wrong of you to call them criminals because they're just living their own truth.
if they're in jail, they're a criminal.
No. We're finding that a lot of people who have not committed crimes are going to jail now.
Well, believers and
Yeah.
people speaking up against no
Pro-lifers.
Well, you know what I mean, like why would you want to do the right that's going to hurt another individual, especially a young child?
If it's
But
a
then
willing
again,
child, isn't it okay?
they're cutting off puberty
That's
blockers
the
and
argument
stuff.
they use.
I know that's really freaked up though.
Yeah.
But it would be one thing. It was a big push for 12-year-olds who want to date 30-year-olds, but it's not. It's 50-year-old men. Or
Wait, you're
40
okay with 30-year-olds dating 12-year-olds?
No, I said
You had said it would be one thing if it were that.
No, you meant like
no. What I'm saying is, it's not right. I'm not saying it's right.
Thank
But what
you.
I'm saying is that that young people tend to be attracted to older people. I mean, that seems like it's like one of those things you go through. Like some people like people there. Now, I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's across the board, but I'm saying like there are some people that like older people. Like if you're 18 and you want to date a 30-year-old, or you're 18 and you want to date a 25-year-old, it would be different. It's because it's that 12-year-old's making the decision, not a 50-year-old making the decision for the 12-year-old.
So are you saying if the 12-year-old is okay with it, then it's okay for the 50-year-old too?
No, I think the 12-year-old needs to mature a little.
Ah.
I mean, what I'm saying is that
I think I understand.
youthful
it's like if a 12-year-old has a
exuberance.
crush on like Tom Cruise.
right, exactly. Like youthful exuberance, you tend to be like, oh, he's so handsome, he's cute, he's good looking, or a woman is
I
like
can honestly
beautiful.
say I never did that.
I mean,
No, I
well,
think-
look
I
at
hope
Weird
not.
Science. Hello, Weird Science. How old was that woman?
Weird Science
So
was
the
a
Weird
weird-
Science was a movie that came out in the United States
Yeah.
in the 1980s.
How old
About
was she?
two
She was
young
made though.
two young teenagers who made a model gorgeous woman because that was their fantasy at the time. It was a comedy.
And every boy in America, when
Oh,
she
she's
came
a-
out, was a
she's-
crop top and underwear. Every boy under the age of, I would say every man and
I
every
was
boy
13.
under 12 years old was like, ooh. So what I'm saying is that that's kind of
It
a
was the 80s.
Oh.
it's kind of an I'm not going to say natural, but it's kind of like
Oh, my boy, Mom, what are
a
you
youthful thing that to say.
Yeah, like to have,
Ooh,
like,
she's
crushes
sexy,
on, like-
ooh,
yeah. I understand what you're saying.
But when you have a 50-year-old,
doing that thing,
Doing
if a
that.
50-year-old, the thing is, kids, they don't know what's good. For
They
them.
don't know. They're
Kids
not
have-
emotionally or mentally prepared
Yeah.
to be in a
If a
relationship.
12-year-old has a crush on Tom Cruise, that 12-year-old doesn't know what a relationship
What
is.
that
doesn't-
means.
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
But
exactly.
if Tom Cruise has a crush on I'm not saying he does, but if Tom Cruise had a crush on a 12-year-old, that means he's
Yeah, we would be like, there's something wrong
Correct.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know through the natural laws of biology, physiology, science,
Yeah.
that you need to be a little more mature and a little more grown up before you enter into any type of relationship, intimate or not, with an older person, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally in the past, that age has been, well, it used to be 20, then it was 18, but now it's 16 or 17 in different parts of the United States. And in other countries, including Islamic culture, it's as low as 9.
Jeez.
But they force them. I mean,
Of
that's
course they
almost
force
like,
them. So it is well known in many Islamic cultures, and not just Islamic, but others as well, that old men, 40s, 50s, 60s, can go in and buy a child bride and be intimate with them even before that child bride is old enough to reproduce. So it's happening every day all over the world. And it is a tragedy. It's a travesty. It destroys and shatters these young people. It robs them of their childhood in this formative years. It doesn't allow them to become the mature, stable adults that they were designed to be.
And we wonder,
Yeah.
we wonder why everything is hypersexualized. Well, because we're allowing it. We're allowing movies to show American Beauty. I mean, the man was obsessed with this young girl.
Oh, I remember that.
Even Weird Science. This 30-year-old woman, I guess she was 30 at the
I
time,
don't
I'm
know
not
how old
sure.
she was.
Even if she was 25, kissing this young boy.
No.
And we're calling it, it's a movie, it's fun, it's whatever.
American Beauty, like Kevin Spacey's all phenomenal, by the way.
Well, Kevin Spacey is a national treasure.
He was really good in that
He's a
film.
brilliant actor.
It was good. It was a good movie. I mean, it had a good message
Yeah,
to it. I
yeah.
mean, he was a
a
middle-aged
message to
man
it.
that was
Yeah.
going through something. But
He just went
but
crazy.
we glorify it now. And now instead of teen pregnancy being, you shouldn't have sex till you get married.
Right.
It's like, well, let's do a show about it. Let's
Let's
glorify
glamorize it and
them
glorify
and say, and I know what their initial thing was let's deter people to show them how hard it is. But then they become famous, and then they become like,
So what? Go ahead.
the Weird Science chick did get kicked back when the film came out.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little weird to me.
I thought her acting in that movie was brilliant, and she deserved an Oscar.
It was amazing.
I never saw
Yeah.
it. So
Mhm.
it's
As long as she kept wearing tight clothes, all you guys were looking at her.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, teenagers can
They're
gawk, but if a
teenagers.
grown woman looks at a kid, she needs to go to jail.
Yes.
All right,
Exactly.
so on that note, what does the Bible have to say about all this, right? About this bizarre, hyper-aggressive trend we see currently in culture, about hyper-emotionalism, and hyper-affections, and hyper-self-truth-finding.
It says make a weapon, go into the temple.
Well, it doesn't say that at all, actually. Let's see. So, join with me, if you will, to Proverbs chapter 4. Yes, Hannah?
I say that.
Let me move this here so you can see the scriptures more clearly. There you go. Yes, Hannah, what?
I say like God would want us to control our emotions.
Yeah, God does want us to control our emotions, doesn't He? He wants us to exercise self-control, which is one of the fruits of the Spirit.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that in a moment. So Proverbs chapter 4, the whole chapter, of course, is brilliant and wonderful. It's called Mishlei in Hebrew, the book of Mishlei, book of Proverbs. And we're going down towards the end of the book. And verse 23. Now, Proverbs, of course, was written by King Solomon, and he addressed much of it to his sons, and it is filled with pithy sayings, if you will, of wisdom and insight, and some of it's even prophetic, directed by the Lord. All of it is, obviously, because the Bible tells us that later on in the New Testament. What does verse 23 of Proverbs 4 say? Anybody?
Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life.
Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Well, what does this mean? Keep your heart. It doesn't say keep your body. It doesn't say keep your soul. It doesn't say keep your mind. It says keep your heart.
Keep your heart is like your
Who you
deepest
are.
character. Like,
So the
yeah,
core of who you are.
Yeah.
Okay. What does it mean to keep it?
control it.
What's it mean in Hebrew?
No idea.
It says mikol mishmar, right?
To guard a lot of
Nitzur, to guard.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
So it's a military term, like a guard on a tower, right, or on a watchtower. In the
The
military, we
watchtower
would call it guard duty.
Yeah, kind of like
Like the Watchtower
guardians
Society?
guarding a
No,
castle.
that's garbage from the Jehovah's Witnesses, and we're not going to go there. Say again, Hannah?
Kind of like guardians guarding a castle.
Yeah.
Can we go there?
Let's not go there. Okay, so in the military, when I was in for a while, we used to have something called guard duty, and they still do it. We even had to memorize rules called general orders, the 3 general orders about guard duty, that you will, guard your post and quit your post only when properly relieved, etc., etc. And the whole purpose of guard duty is to do what?
Go.
Protect whatever's
Guard.
inside.
Protect.
Yeah.
Be it people or things or places. You're guarding it from an exterior or outside enemy, right? Well, here in Proverbs, it says to protect or guard your heart. Does that mean that there are enemies outside of our heart that want to break in?
Yes.
Yes. Why should we protect or guard our hearts?
Because people are stupid.
Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of the heart, our actions, our desires, our affections.
So
stem.
everything in life, right? It says the issues of life come from the heart. Everything. So it's sort of like that old picture that you may have seen before. Here comes some drawing, so you'll forgive my lack of artistic skill here. So it's like we are, the innermost us is a heart. This is our heart, right? And we have a soul, which is what animates us, and we live in a body. It looks like the dough man, but there we go.
Same thing as the spirit.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Benjamin. So the heart equals spirit when talked about in the Bible, right? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, right? Spirit, same thing.
It looks like our body orbits our...
Yeah, I know.
well, our soul orbits our heart.
It's something like that, but it's, you'll forgive the illustration.
I like the guy who's like...
He's like, yay!
He looks flat, like
And-
when it was like.
He's a gingerbread. Gingerbread guy. Our hearts, this is who we truly are. Can we say our true selves?
Oh, it's
That's our
there.
hearts.
And our true selves are terrible. So...
We are terrible. That's why we need to have our hearts cleaned. Because our hearts are filled with sin, wickedness, selfishness, deceit. Yeshua says that our hearts are desperately wicked above all things. Who can know it, right? It says in Hebrew, incurable. Only God can fix our hearts. But if we guard our hearts, if we let the Lord clean us with the blood of Yeshua, that's why he came. And then we set up a guard tower. And here's our little guard towers around our hearts, right? And we watch what goes in and out of our hearts. Then all the stuff wanting to come in to change us. And that stuff often comes in through our eyes
In our mind.
or our ears, right? Then we let it into
Our
our
thoughts.
brains. And here's our little brain. Yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads to our hearts. If we guard that, we will protect our heart, because everything in our lives issues from our hearts. Well, what about feelings then? Where do feelings come in?
That's soul.
Yeah,
That's part of
feelings
the
are
soul.
feelings are part of our soul, right? So if I feel like a dolphin today, and as a dolphin I want to have sex with other dolphins, so I jump in the water to do terrible, indecent things to those poor dolphins.
Kanye West.
This video's getting monetized.
So, but obviously I'm being very silly. Thanks for that. Obviously I'm being very silly here, but you get the point of this madness that has just gripped the world. If I feel like that, should I do it?
No.
We are always taught in our current society that we should follow our feelings, follow our hearts.
That's been a Disney theme for
decades.
decades.
Yes.
I think that
That was funny.
if we solely went on feelings, every minute would be a different. There was no stability, because you wake up in the morning and your day is great and you're feeling fine and whatever. Then you get into a car and go into traffic. Then you're angry. So 5 minutes you've changed a feeling. Then you go to work and then somebody gives you a donut and you're happy again. And then after that your boss yells at you for not, saving paper clips. Then you're mad again. So
Yeah.
the environment, people around us, our interactions, they all change, our feelings. And so if we live by that solely, we're not a solid person. We're just a jellyfish going through the
Yeah.
water and going wherever the waves take us. We're not substantial. There's nothing substantial in your life.
And what does the Bible say about someone that just bounces back and forth mentally or emotionally about how they feel, and they got to express their feelings and be honest about their feelings?
They're like
Now,
waves.
please
How
don't
dare you, 'cause I was
don't
just gonna
misunderstand
say.
me. I'm not saying we all have feelings, we have emotions, we have to be honest about that, but we have to control them. We don't spray our emotions like a garden hose or a fire hydrant hose to other people, right? We be honest, but we do so in a measured and controlled manner. We don't deny them. Hey, I'm feeling angry. We'll be honest about that. But don't go in and throw things and crash and scream and say, "Oh, I'm angry."
And don't expect
That's
other
not
people
going
to
to
be
help.
angry with you.
Right. Or
Because-
to necessarily empathize.
Right. I mean, they can hear you and empathize and say, hey, yeah, that would make me mad too. But don't expect a whole society or whole people group or whole whatever to agree with that feeling, because that's not fair to the other people, and that's not fair to you, because there's no realness to it. I mean, it's real. I mean, you're feeling the feelings, but it's fleeting. It'll go away in
Feelings
5
change,
minutes.
right.
Yeah.
Feelings change. Absolute truth does not. James chapter 1. James chapter 1. Very famous set of verses here. Now, it's really not called the book of James. What's the real name of this
Jake's
book? Excuse me. Jacob. If you look in Hebrew and Greek, the name James occurs nowhere in the Bible.
What?
True
Why?
story. You tell me, Hannah.
Not British.
Because King James changed it.
King James
to put
changed it to
himself
have his
in the
name in the Bible. Correct. It's actually Jacob, or Yaakov in Hebrew. So in the book of Jacob, which we call James erroneously, chapter 1, verse 5. Would anybody like to read verse 5, 6, and 7 of James 1?
Josh, if you want it,
You can read it.
oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord.
In verse 8.
He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways.
Okay. Now this is a fascinating verse. Obviously it's about being addressed to those who are born again, who love the Lord, and have been made new through the blood, the death, and resurrection of Yeshua. And he says, if you need wisdom, ask God. God will give you wisdom. Don't worry about it. But if you're going to ask, you got to trust God that he's going to do what he says. Don't doubt. You'll be like a wave going against the shore, then back again, then up to the shore and back again. It's just, it's madness. Don't think that God is going to give you anything if you're not going to trust him. If you are double-minded, you will be unstable in all your ways. But it doesn't say double-minded in Greek, does it? Does anybody know what it says in Greek?
Joshi? Our Greek scholar?
Welcome back, Josh.
I accidentally took the soft as a second
did
to
you?
ask that question.
Oopsie.
Double-minded is double-minded.
Nope, it's not.
No,
It's
dipsychos.
dipsykos, which is double-souled.
that where we get psycho from?
Psycho. Yeah, we get the word mind from that as well, but it can also refer to the soul, right? So if you are someone that's like, yesterday I'm a dolphin, today I'm a helicopter, tomorrow I'm straight, then the next day I'm bi, the next day I'm trans. Is this getting uncomfortable for anybody? The next day I'm a Democrat, the next day I'm a Republican, the next day, etc., etc., etc.
It doesn't have to be that extreme. It could just be like, I love my job, or I hate my job, or I love my job, or I hate my job, or,
No, this doesn't mean that you
whatever.
can't once in a while change your mind, but to do so, you need to have facts, you need to be rational, you need to be unemotional about it, right? Never make a decision when you're hyper-emotional, because you'll always make the wrong one. And you need to be wise, and that's why we ask God for wisdom when we make these decisions. Because if you don't, you'll just follow your feelings. You'll be two-souled. And there's a term now, two-souled, which means that you are...
That's two-spirit.
It's two-spirit, yes, thank you. And I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about someone who's mentally and emotionally unstable to the point where they do not commit to anything, or if they do, they change it 10 minutes later, right?
I think that, the first part of that, if any of you lacks wisdom, and that's the key word, wisdom. We need wisdom, and that's where logic and facts come in. Because we, like I said earlier, we tend to throw those to the side and just focus on the feelings. But in reality, if, what we're feeling, if we would sit down and say, okay, what are the facts? What's logical about this? This is probably not one, but let's take fear, for instance. Like with the love movement, it was all about fear of global annihilation.
Right?
Well, let's sit down and think about that. Okay, what's so fearful about that? And most of the time, it's I don't want to die. Okay, well, why don't you want to die? Let's look at it truthfully, and because we all long to want to live. And we don't want to be living in a post-apocalyptic world. I mean, that's normal. So if we have our feelings and we use wisdom with truth and logic,
Which God promises to us if we ask him.
that's right. You cannot eliminate one or the other. They all go hand in hand.
Right.
You just can't. You have to have the wisdom, the logic, the truth, along with the feelings.
Right.
Because then we become unstable.
So we cannot follow our feelings. We cannot follow our feelings. Feelings are ephemeral, like a mist or a ghost. They go back and forth and they change, and they are untrustworthy. We have to be honest about what we feel, but what we feel is going to change minute by minute. We cannot let them lead us. This is what is leading to so much hijacking of people right now, spiritually and mentally, and so much fomenting of the challenges we see in our current culture.
Well, I know you're going to ask me where it is, but if we don't allow ourselves to be honest with our feelings and then use logic and wisdom, as God says, and seek God for that, in turn it becomes bitterness.
Well, that's
And
true.
it becomes, it stems into, it's kind of like a seed. It will go into many different directions, like bitterness.
What is it?
And
You say it will go into many different directions.
holding on to those feelings.
What feelings?
Like if we just are run by our feelings.
Oh, right.
And if we just hold on to those and say, okay, well, I'm not going to hold it up against truth and logic and seek the Lord for wisdom. If we just run on feelings, then a lot of feelings like anger and, will turn into bitterness. And then God talks about that. And then it'll turn into hatred. Then it'll turn into what we have today is, and I'm not saying God's tolerant, but what I'm saying is then we become so blinded by what we have put in our heart as our truth or our feelings
Right.
that we tend to not be kind to other people
So
that are
that's where
different
the
than us.
hyper offense comes from, right?
Right, yeah.
People are like, oh my gosh, this is my truth. And if you speak against it, I'm so offended. And you can't offend me because if you offend me, you're oppressing me. And if you're oppressing me, then I'm a victim and I can attack you.
It's okay to
Right.
oppress people who talk like that.
Like that lady who got arrested for protesting the Muslims yesterday in the London or wherever in England. She was just trying to express her opinion. She wasn't hurting anyone.
She wasn't attacking.
She wasn't setting things on fire. She wasn't
No.
destroying anything,
No.
causing $1 million worth of
No.
damage. She wasn't beating up police cars and breaking windows. She was just standing there.
Yeah.
And so that's a prime example of those that are unstable and those are just trying to seek wisdom. Wait a minute, these people are destroying our neighborhoods. It's wise to not let people destroy neighborhoods.
You can't let wisdom and fact interfere with feelings.
It doesn't matter who
These
they are.
Muslim radicals, and I call them radicals because most Muslims don't behave like that, they're feeling this way, so they need to have the right to destroy and kill and maim and murder and rape 12-year-olds in public and behead young British soldiers in public with machetes because that's how they feel.
Well, I noticed in the crowd there were a lot of young.
Oh,
there
yeah,
were
it was
younger
almost
people.
all
It
young
wasn't,
people.
and that's the problem. Is people. I remember being 20, and I thought, oh, my parents were dumb. I was
I
like,
think every 20-year-old, okay, we have two 20-year-olds here. Do you guys feel your parents are dumb?
or don't know as much as you.
Dumb
That's
is
what you say.
an extreme word. I prefer differently minded.
Differently
No,
minded.
I'm kidding.
Neurologically divergent.
And now I think
Just autistic.
I think
Just
that.
autistic. So that's a yes. They think
Yes.
we're both
Yeah.
out of our minds.
So I think that is one reason why our society has failed our young people is because we're putting so much, responsibility on them that they're not ready for. 20-year-olds are not ready to,
No, of course not.
rule the world or become.
Okay, so I agree. Last point here, we have to close, and I apologize for running out of time. We're in Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 and 23. Who would like to read Galatians 5, verses 22 and 23?
I think you can do it right now, but you can.
Somebody
You
up
already
here?
read one. Joshy hasn't read one yet.
22, 23.
Yes.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law.
Paul is writing here, thank you, Joshua, to the Galatians, and he's saying that there is a higher way to live, right? Which we can only live by God's Spirit being within us. So only if you're born again, right? But the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace. These people that live by their feelings, they have so little peace. Long-suffering, kindness. We're seeing an absolute dearth of kindness, right? Goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. Last one is one of the biggest, self-control. Against such there is no Torah. There is no law against these things. And again, this is only possible, it's only possible to live these fruit of the Spirit if you are born again. Right? The Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not die, but live forever. And it's not physical death that Yeshua is talking about there in John 3. It's spiritual death. We will all stand before God one day. Wouldn't it be nice to stand before him and know that we're clean and we don't have to worry about him judging us for our sins because Jesus bore that on the cross for us. When we do that, when we surrender to him in that way, our lives, then these fruit of the Spirit become manifest within us. We change, we're new people. And one of those, again, is self-control. No more of that hyper-antagonistic, oh my gosh, you've offended me because I can't believe you won't let me go out and do this or that or be this or that.
It's not only that. It's just I see all these videos about if you call someone the wrong pronoun.
Yes.
It's like war. It's like you just kill their cat or something.
And again, it's
And
hyper emotions.
Yes, it's like okay, so instead of most people our age, you and I age would be like okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But now it's become like your pronoun or your whatever is your identity, and it's not your identity. There's more to you than just feelings. There's more to you than a pronoun. There's more to you than your sexual identity or your a political agenda. There's more to you than that. So if we're going to live in love, walk in the fruit of the Spirit, that means that we have to also have kindness and goodness and self-control and all those things. But I also like down there it says, let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. That goes with that.
It does.
That's part of that scripture is like, if you're going to love and all these things, and if you're going to do things out of love, because they use that a lot. Oh,
They do.
love is love. Well, if you really want to know what love is, this is what love is.
This is what love is.
And it's also saying don't provoke one another. So if you are offended by someone, talk to them. Say, hey,
Well,
but
that's
don't.
again written to Christians.
Right, but what
So-
I'm saying is don't impose your feeling as fact and then make me live by it.
Right.
It's not, that's not love.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we have run out of time, unfortunately, so thank you guys again. These scriptures are up here, and I truly encourage everyone to go back through and look at them. Again, we looked at Proverbs 4:23, we looked at James 1:5-8, and we looked at Galatians 5:22-23. This all tell us and teach us why we cannot be led by our affections or emotions, right? If we're born again, we're to be led by God's Spirit. And we're going to let faith and facts guide our choices by His Spirit, not how we feel, not our affections. Yes.
I think imminent is E.
I have
isn't
no
it?
idea how to spell. I'm the worst speller on earth.
M-M-I-N. No. E-M-M. I think imminent.
No, this
I
is.
think imminent.
There we go.
Imminent
Perfect.
is an I.
And, okay.
Yeah, he's right. It's
Okay.
an I.
And then up there, behavior, I think.
Yeah,
I don't
depends on
think
what.
there's an
Eminent or
I in
eminent?
behavior.
There is.
So two different ones.
But it's,
Imminent.
Yeah, I
is
know.
close.
So,
Okay.
we have run out of time again. Thank you guys so much for pray for me that I learn how to spell. Review these scriptures again. Pray and see what God would have you do. And if there are any areas in your lives or my life, right, where we're being led more by our feelings or affections than we are by faith and by His Spirit. And if so, then ask God to bring that to the surface that we might repent and He might strengthen us in Him. We don't have to be victims or slaves of our emotions. All right, we have run out of time for this week. God willing, we'll be back next week, same time, same channel here on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to receive more information about posts.
Oh, that's right. I hit the bell.
is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Meanwhile, please continue to pray for Israel, the Jewish people, and all those who are in conflict around the world. For example, the Soviet Union, Russia, is attacking Ukraine right now, and Georgia, right? And they're putting a lot of pressure on Armenia as well. So terrible, terrible
Pray for
things going
Ukraine.
on.
They need help, and we're not giving it.
Folks in Venezuela and Mexico, and it's just, the world is in chaos. Meanwhile, please don't forget to pray for the salvation of the Jewish people and for the peace of Jerusalem. So we say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you as well. And Shavua Tov, which means
Have a good week.
have a good week. I hope you guys have a good week. I hope you have a good week as well.